Hi, and welcome back to the Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we talk about everything F1. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing the championship opener of 2024, the Bahrain Grand Prix. I'm your host, Jordan Wynn, and alongside me is your co-host, Alden Cawell. Hello, Alden.
Hey, Jordan. It's good to see you again. It's been a while. Happy 2024. I know we've done a couple episodes, but the season has started.
Yeah, it's been, 4 weeks since we've gotten on the mic, so should be a fun ride today.
Absolutely.
Let's start with some news. Christian Horner in trouble. He was cleared of some misconduct.
Yeah. There's definitely been a lot of news surrounding Christian Horner this weekend. Didn't seem to impact the team all that much. They finished 1-2. We'll get to that later. But there's been headlines. There's been a lot of chatter. There's been a lot of commotion. The vultures have been circling, if you will. How close they are to getting any carry-in, we don't know, but definitely been in the news. But it doesn't seem to have impacted the team and their on-track performance.
Correct. And clear, nothing's happened within the team otherwise. Everything's staying pat.
That's what it sounds like.
For now?
For now. We don't know.
Yeah, but I'm sure there'll be more news in the coming weeks. I
don't think this story is done.
No, not going away. Some other news. Alpine technical director Matt Harmon and their head of aerodynamics Dirk de Boer have left the team, and probably for good reason. They had really bad testing.
Really bad.
And it was fairly obvious that they were at the back end of the pack after finishing P6 last year, constructors.
Yep.
They got a bad car, but we can get into that later. But this just kind of adds to Alpine's turmoil over the past probably
12 months.
Probably not even.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say 12 months, ever since Australia last year where they crashed into each other.
Yeah.
They've done a good job of quite honestly, the drivers don't seem to have a rift, but between, the one person you're not supposed, if you are going to crash, the one person you're not supposed to crash into is your teammate. All that said, they've had a roller coaster last 12 months. I'm not sure that these two individuals were necessarily to blame for the issues. When you fire basically like the entire upper echelon of your team right before the August break of the previous season, how are you ever going to have a good car for the following year?
Yep. How are you going to have any sort of direction?
You don't have any direction. They didn't have a team principal until this off season. In name, right? There was an interim guy. He's making the choices, but
right.
He's trying not to, rock the ship because he's trying to make the interim permanent.
Yep.
If he wanted it. We were talking off air a little bit about Alpine, but I don't think this is the end.
No.
I think this is pretty much just the beginning. I honestly don't see how, these two guys left by mutual consent. I mean, they brought a bad car, but this isn't just solely their problem or their fault.
I mean, it's testing and one race weekend in.
Yeah, but the car's not going to magically lose 10 kilos.
Right. Some other news. Sounds like there are talks of Turkey coming back. The Turkish Grand Prix.
Yeah. There's been some chatter recently. It sounded like Mohammed bin Suleiman was in Turkey to discuss both World Rally Championship circuits and F1 return with Turkish President Erdogan. So, maybe they know each other outside of these things, but it would be nice to go back to Turkey. I think we talked a little bit about it in our circuits episode.
Yeah, I really did enjoy Turkey Grand Prix.
When we had that 2021 race there during COVID, it was a weird weekend with the rain and the pavement and all sorts of weird shenanigans.
Yeah, because they just
on
repaved and
But that circuit is fast. That circuit's pretty cool. So
it's fun to watch.
It's maybe not the best circuit, past, present, or future, but it would be a welcome return even for just a couple of years.
Yeah. So they'd have to cut some bad ones out, hopefully, or a bad one, and not add another race onto the calendar.
Well, we
That would be-
talked about in the circuits episode, there's plenty of ones we believe that they could cut from the calendar.
That's right.
But knowing F1, they probably just add a 25th race.
Yeah. You got to get halfway through the calendar.
Right,
race
you
every
need
other week.
26.
That's right. All right, we can get to the Bahrain Grand Prix because that's all the news we got for this weekend.
Yep.
We have first race of the year, obviously. It's interesting because you come off of testing, which is also at the same circuit.
Yeah. They didn't
there's-
even leave.
Nope. There's a lot of chatter about that I heard about Haas, how they kind of were trying to use the setup weekend, the testing weekend to kind of set them up for also the race weekend, which everybody's doing, but it seemed like they were doing it even more so than some other teams to try and, hopefully snag some points right away. But yeah, let's see where everybody shakes out. Qualifying was on Friday this weekend. Interesting weekend for that as well. But let's start with Q1 exits. Alpine was dead last.
19 and 20.
And it wasn't close.
No.
Like you said, their car came in overweight by quite a bit. Aerodynamically, it wasn't good.
No, it's a thick car. It's heavy. It's ugly. That doesn't make it go fast.
No.
But it does make it even more slow
Yes.
visually
When it's already slow.
when it's already slow. Yeah, there's not really much to say about other than the fact that, like, just looking at that car, you can tell it's slow. You can tell by the body language from the drivers. They're trying to make the most of it. You heard them on the radio at the end of qualifying and the race. We'll get to the race results later, but, this is, again, only the first race of the year. We saw McLaren in this position last year. They looked awful at Bahrain last year.
They did.
And they ended up contending for podiums at the end of the season. So, is Alpine structured in the same way McLaren is? No. Is it possible for McLaren or for Alpine to do the same thing that McLaren did? Theoretically, yeah.
But no.
But likely,
Likely
the
no.
answer is no. But we agree that we don't necessarily think they've reached rock bottom yet, but so long as the drivers provide the feedback, the team invests the money on getting new people in and making the process quick and giving people the freedom to design the car that's necessary, theoretically they can come around mid-season and start scoring some points. It's totally possible, but
it is.
and we hope so. And we talking like there's a lot of good people who work at that team who don't deserve to be dead last.
That's right.
They don't deserve to have their jobs be questioned.
Right. And it all starts from the top, and when the top doesn't know what they want to do, it definitely trickles down, and you end up with a car like this.
Yeah.
And, they're kind of in turmoil a little bit, but hopefully they can figure it out, get some upgrades going down the pipeline, and work their way up the field.
Yeah.
Both Saubers were out as well in Q1. I don't know. That probably wasn't much of a surprise either.
No, kind of in testing and in the free practice sessions, they had done some interesting laps, but always off pace with the rest of the group, maybe on different tires or different fuel loads. But once qualifying got going, it seemed this is where they were going to be.
Yeah. Haas seemed like they had some better pace than expected. Although this was kind of the trend last year with Hulkenberg getting some good qualifyings in, getting into Q3 fairly often, it felt like at least. He did it again here in Bahrain, got into Q3, ended up P10 qualifying.
He had a great qualifying session.
Yeah, it looked good.
That was the last good moment he had too.
Yeah, that turn one was brutal for him, but we'll get into that later. Max ended up on pole. No surprise there.
Nope.
Charles, P2. Probably not so much a surprise there either.
Nope. Surprisingly, though, Russell third.
Yeah. Yeah, Mercedes had good testing, or had good time at testing. And
Had a great FP2 where they set the fastest lap,
yes.
I think, of the whole weekend.
And that's usually the,
That's the qualifying.
yes, and it's
quote-unquote,
indicative for
yeah.
you're doing your glory runs then for qualifying. Sainz P4, Checo P5. I think Norris was P6.
Yeah, and then Hamilton
McLaren.
7, Piastri.
Oh, Alonso was P6, sorry. think Norris,
then Hamilton, then Piastri, then Hülkenberg.
something like that.
Something like that.
Something in that range there. But yeah, it kind of shook out. The top kind of shook out closer to what we thought, more or less.
Yeah, the heavy hitters were kind of all in that top 10.
Yeah. When we get to the race, there was no yellow flags. I don't think, other than Sargent's off.
Yeah, Sargent went off for 30 seconds, and those were the only yellows, except for maybe turn 1, but they got that sorted out
pretty quickly.
No safety car this is the first time in a number of years where they didn't have a safety car or retirement in the first race of the year.
Yeah. Which is a little crazy. And what it shows to the reliability of these cars too. And having an engine freeze.
Right. Team
more stable regs.
I think really team principals have drilled it into drivers' heads. Do not crash the car. We do not have the money for you to crash the car.
Right. Cost cap.
You cannot run into the back of someone. Bring the car home is the message, likely. Because, I remember 2017, 2018, 2019. These guys were running into each other.
Yeah. Turn 1 Belgium every year.
Every year,
turn 1.
Yeah.
Same situation for everybody. Every time.
Turn 1 at Coda, right up the hill. Just right into
How many cars
side.
can we fit up here? Probably the entire field. But it collapses at some point. You got to back off.
No, absolutely. So I guess that was a standout thing that we noticed that from this weekend. Just every car came home.
Yeah.
Which is rare.
And it kind of plays to the race where you can kind of get a feel for where people end up and their race pace. At least toward the front of the field, it felt like it was more kind of depends. We can get into it.
Yeah.
Red Bull. Max, started on pole. He was out of DRS zone by turn 4.
Yep.
It felt like he was gone. Won the race by 22 seconds comfortably. Fastest lap.
26 points.
Yep.
He was probably lifting and coasting. The engine's probably just as new as it was, even though it did a whole race.
Yep.
He started the season right where he left off last year. Complete and utter dominance. Perez finished second, and he was 22 seconds behind.
Yeah.
22 and a half seconds behind.
To be fair, he started 5th.
Yeah,
so he had to work his way up a little bit. He was stuck behind the Ferraris and Russell for a little bit of time. Yeah, that whole first stint, I think.
Right. If you look to the first non-Red Bull car, that would be Sainz, who ended up on the podium, P3, over 25 seconds back of Max. So it doesn't make it yes, Perez had to make his way from P5 to P2, but the Ferraris regressed.
I don't know if it's
just from the beginning of the race, I would say.
Sure.
Not from last year. I think their car's better than last year.
Yes.
But just, you don't start, all right, Charles was P2. He had some issues.
Yes.
Sainz ended up starting P4 and ended up finishing on the podium, but Max easily could have lapped a few more individuals if he had really been driving fast, I think.
Yeah. And I think fairly easily. Like we said, Max wins, Perez P2. Pretty standard race for Perez, just coming through the field toward the end of the season. Beginning of the season last year, was he able to, get through, come back through the field, have a comeback drive, quote unquote, get where he needs to be, how he started off the season. So that was good for him. Sainz P3, like we said, he started P5, worked his way up, got past Charles earlier on. Charles was having issues with his, brake bias or something, whatever the issue was.
Yeah, he had some issues
Crazy
with brakes.
locking up
He
constantly.
was locking up into multiple corners, specifically, what was that, turns 8, 9, and 10.
Something like that, yep.
Yeah.
That double left-hander.
That was really brutal. He went wide a number of times, and it is where Checo ended up passing him. He was in that turn complex. It was sad because once that was sorted, he didn't look slow.
No.
And maybe they didn't really sort it. Maybe they just managed it, but disappointing. He started on the front row of the grid for the race, ended up finishing P4, but Sainz had a great drive.
Yeah.
He did everything he needed to do to secure maximum points and get himself on the podium.
Yeah, he's got a point to prove this year, too. He's out of contract with Ferrari, with Lewis Hamilton coming in.
Yep.
So he's got to, prove his worth if he needs to.
He's driving for a seat.
And so far, 1-0 for him. This brings us to Mercedes. Russell ended up P5. Seems like Mercedes had some power unit cooling issues. It sounded like that they picked the wrong cooling package. I think I had heard that it cost them like a few milliseconds in qualifying, but like it cost them like 0.3 in race pace.
That's what it
or
sounded
something like that.
Yeah, I think Toto, a lap, which is significant. Toto was mentioning that, I think, in some of the post-race interviews, or maybe it was Hamilton. I can't quite remember, but it wasn't a particularly warm weekend either, which makes you kind of wonder, like, if you're overheating in that quote-unquote cool of a temperature. I mean, you looked at the people in the stands. Yes, it's Bahrain, but a lot of people were wearing sweaters, jackets.
Yeah.
It's at night.
It's a cool weekend for Bahrain.
It's a cool weekend for Bahrain, yeah, but your car cannot be overheating in, 68, 20-degree weather.
Right.
Hopefully that's indicative of someone choosing the wrong cooling package and not the fragility of the power unit this year.
Yeah, but we know, I feel like they have cooling issues in the past too in different environments.
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully they just selected the wrong one and they have a faster race car. There's a lot of lifting coasting for them.
Yeah, that was the message over the radio for both Lewis and Russell.
Yeah, and it sounded like Lewis had a battery issue as well or something.
And a broken seat.
Yeah, broken seat too.
Guy could barely drive this weekend.
I think the comment I saw was, "Oh, you got a broken seat? Go sit in the Ferrari or sit in the Ferrari then." Yeah, Russell P5, Hamilton ends up P7, gained a couple spots from P9. McLaren, I felt like they had kind of a boring race to me, I guess, and maybe that's just from watching on TV that they didn't really get too much TV time or whatever it was. But Norris P6, Piastri P8. I don't think they expected a ton more from the first race. It's not a track that suits them.
Yeah.
They're more of the high speed corners track. This is not that.
It sounds like they're expecting Jeddah to be a better circuit for their car. Yes. At least the current iteration of their car. I mean, we talked earlier when we were comparing McLaren last year to Alpine this year. This is a significant improvement for McLaren's points haul and their race by comparison to last year.
They're not last.
They're not in last.
To last year.
Exactly. So automatic improvement. But if you're just comparing race to race year over year, this is a clear indication that their car is still good and that their car is better specifically for areas where they're weak. So, if you want to contend for P3, P2 in the Constructors' Championship, you got to score points at your weak tracks so that when your strong tracks and circuits come good, you can bring in the real points that score you the money at the end of the season.
Yep.
So, yeah, like you said, it was a bit boring. I mean, the race overall was a bit boring, aside from a couple of incidents here and there. But Norris and Piastri, they got their heads down. They did their job, and P6, P8, double points finish.
Yeah.
That's what they need.
Pretty standard race for them. So, good start for them, seems like. Aston Martin, Alonso P9, and Stroll P10. Alonso kind of just dropped down through the field. I think he was the most overtaken car ahead red.
Yeah.
But I think that's just indicative to where Aston Martin is right now. Comparatively to the top four other teams or top five other teams. They're just not there yet. Stroll had the incident on turn 1. I think he was spun around, or at least halfway around.
Yeah, he was definitely facing the wrong direction at the end of turn 1. And we'll get into that. Yeah, he was hit in the back by Hulk, who was hit in the back by Bottas.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Bottas hit Hulk, who then hit Stroll, or Hulk hit Stroll because he got too close and then Bottas couldn't stop in time before hitting Hulk. Either way, those three all made contact with one another on the opening lap. Stroll finished lap 1, P19, ended up coming all the way back to a points finish at P10. So great recovery drive by him, considering where he was at the end of the first lap. He drove that car really well. I mean, like you said, Alonso, took a few steps back in the race, but Stroll, I I'd say if they finish P9 and P10, they're the midfield team right there, right? Like that is the definition. They just ended up exactly where their car appears to be.
Right. Yeah. Stroll, great race. I think coming back, like you said, from P19 after that first lap, working his way back up. So see where they go from here. Next up, kick steak sauber, what are we?
The green and black
What did we
team.
decide to call them?
The green and black
The
team.
neon green.
Yeah.
Zhou Guanyu, P11.
He had a great race.
Yeah, it was pretty low key, but he had an early pit stop. I think both of his stints he pitted earlier than I think a lot of people. Got a big undercut and ended up P11 and held his track position the rest of the way, which is good for him. Bottas, on the other hand, he had a lug nut issue in his pits. I feel like he's like the most cursed pit stop.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dealing with pit, he should just never pit. I know you can't do that, but like he has the most issues with pit stops for whatever reason.
He has the record.
Doesn't matter what
for
team he's
the
on.
Longest and second longest pit stops in F1 now, which is very
One
sad.
hasn't ended yet.
Correct. I think the commentary on ESPN/Sky was like he had a 52-second stop for the second slowest pit stop in Formula One. The longest one being a day and a half before they got the tire off the first car.
Had to bring it back to the factory.
Oh, that's so sad.
So yeah, that basically cost his entire race. Lost 52 seconds or whatever it was you said.
But he can look to his teammate and say, my car isn't as bad as I qualified. If he finished P11, sure, maybe there was some strategy that helped him get to that point, but that's how fast my car is.
Yeah.
So,
and there's no reason why Bottas couldn't have done the same.
Exactly. I mean, well, he did crash in the opening lap. He was definitely P18, P19, P20 at the end of lap one, but he probably could have been in contention for possibly some points if that hadn't been the case.
Yep. Getting sports our way to Haas now with Kevin Magnussen ended up P12, Hulkenberg P16. I feel like we still don't really know where the Haas is based on this race. I know it's race one, right? Hulk qualified P10. He was P20 at the end of lap one.
Yep.
So that kind of throws him out the window. Magnussen didn't qualify well, but did end up P12.
Right.
I don't know if that's indicative to everybody else where they ended up behind him and how well they did, but that's where Haas is right now. I feel like this is just their season. They'll be kind of in limbo. I don't know if they'll know where they are either. But yeah, Magnussen P12.
Yeah, I was trying to rationalize this and try and think through this a little bit, but like Haas continues to have difficulties developing their car mid-season, which ends up resulting in a car that is essentially as good or as bad as it started the season.
Yeah.
And now that Formula One has this cost cap and the teams at the lower end of the field during various milestones of the season, their position gives them more or less time in wind tunnel and CAD drawings or simulations or whatnot.
Yep.
And this car is a result of having more wind tunnel time and simulation or whatever resources allocated to them by the FIA or Formula One or whatever, whoever ends up measuring that and sort of regulating it. But the beginning of the season is where they should be scoring points.
Or they should be
in contention to be scoring points. And
right.
Yes, Hulkenberg's, qualified P10. Had he not crashed, where would he have ended up? Who knows? Given that Magnussen finished P12, maybe they were in contention for some points this weekend. But this is the part of the season where this team needs to be scoring points because the other teams are going to outdevelop them.
Because they're such poor developers.
Because Haas has difficulty.
They will get more wind time throughout, or wind tunnel time,
Correct.
and CAD simulations throughout the season. But as you say, they've kind of proven it to themselves that they struggle
Right.
year in, year out.
It doesn't result in on-field performance improvements or on-track performance improvements.
Right.
which is sad.
It is. But
maybe this is the start of something new now that they have a new team principal.
yes,
Maybe things will change. We hope.
It'd be nice to see them get out of the bottom again. This takes us to V Carb RB the Toro Rosso.
Toro Rosso 3.0.
Yeah. Yeah. Ricardo P13 controversially. Tsunoda P14 controversially. The reason we say that is they were told to swap positions while Yuki was behind Magnussen.
Right. Those three were all...
They were kind of in a train a little bit.
Magnussen was on some hards. Yuki was on hards, but Daniel had pitted and was on softs. So he was coming through. He was a little bit faster. Quote unquote. According to Yuki, he was quote unquote faster. Not really.
Yeah.
But the call came through. Both of them swap positions.
A little later than
it should have been.
Yes.
And Daniel could not pass Magnussen.
But that's the risk you take when your soft tires get eaten up and you catch the field and then you don't get swapped in time.
Correct.
Potentially. I'm not saying he would have passed Magnussen.
Right.
It would have given him a better chance.
Yeah, right.
It would have given him a better chance to pass him if he would have swapped positions right away. But Yuki wasn't very happy about that, obviously.
No, he was making a big stink on the radio.
Made a big stink on the radio. He, what do you call it?
Dive bombed his
dive
teammate.
bomb. I was going to say, like, what's the plane thing where you go by the tower?
Crop dusting.
Or no, you do the tower, like you do the fly by the tower.
Flyby.
But what's it called?
Touch and go.
No, there's a term for the tower. Like you buzz the tower.
Buzz the tower.
Buzz the Daniel Ricciardo tower.
Yeah, he straight up locked his tires up as he braked straight past him and then
drove then flew past him again, right next to him.
Not a good look.
No.
Daniel, was only doing what he was told.
Right.
Yuki was not doing what he was told, making us think about it, and then acting like a petulant child at the end of the race for P13 and P14, which, let me think here. No.
Did they get points for that?
Carry the two. No, they don't get points for that. It's literally meaningless. And that's what is... I read a quote attributed to Daniel Ricciardo, who at the end of the day was like, look, it's P13. I could care less. If the team had told me to swap back, I gave it a go. It didn't happen. Last corner, let Yuki back. He would have done it.
Right.
Hey, of course he can say that at the end of the race. Would he? Who knows?
Right. But I think P13, P14 for him, I don't think he cares.
Right. He's a 7-time race winner. He does not care about a P13 finish.
No, he doesn't.
Especially against... Nothing wrong with Magnussen or the Haas, but he doesn't care.
No, he absolutely does not. Brings us to Williams. Alex Albon, P15. He had that Mercedes PU in his engine as well. I know McLaren does too, but he had some overheating issues, it sounded like, as well. Sargent had some steering wheel issue. I heard he had issues with, when he locked up into that corner, I don't know, was that turn 3 or something? He just went super deep.
Yeah, he locked up straight on through turn 4, and then it looked like this was like lap 10 of the race. It was the only yellow flags of the entire race. And then he was reversing when he had all this runoff time to keep going. It looked like he was fidgeting with the steering wheel, like you said. He had steering wheel issues. And they ended up swapping the steering wheel during one of his pit stops.
Right, he came in that lap. And then he also mentioned in the post-race interviews that he was having similar issues with his steering wheel during qualifying. Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah, so I was watching some of the videos on F1.com today.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be what he was talking about. And yeah, he wasn't happy with the steering wheel for both qualifying and the race. So I don't know if he used 3 different steering wheels this weekend or if the one that he ended up swapping to in the middle of the race was the one from qualifying. But either way, he's not happy about the steering wheel. And this is a new steering wheel that Williams has developed this year because they have finally caught up with the rest of the team, with the rest of the teams in the paddock who have a screen on the steering wheel.
Yes, instead of on the dashboard.
Right, a dashboard,
quote unquote, an F1 car.
and to be fair, like, hey, they got to spend money on it. They got to develop it. They got to go through the kinks just like all the other teams did. They could have bought one off the shelf. Not really. I don't think you can get a steering wheel from Mercedes, who they have a technical partnership with in some loose capacity. They're buying certain things from them. But, like, this is just part of the it's unfortunate it happened to Sargent. I mean, the poor guy, barely got his seat back for this season.
Yeah.
He ends up finishing P20. I think you could look at this situation and say, this isn't really his fault. But at the end of the year, come August,
they're going to say it's his fault.
They're going to say it's his fault. Yeah. Or they will forget that it wasn't his fault.
Well, it's like every season, right? If you ever go through the history of, an F1, certain seasons, you're like, oh, well, they finished like, oh, they lost to their teammate. Yeah, but because he had 8 DNFs because of a Renault engine. Right. Like just dumb stuff throughout the season that happens. But no one's going to remember that. They're going to look at it like, oh, here's the points finished. What happened? Oh, he had 8 DNFs. Did he crash? I don't know. Like, what was the problem?
Completely not his fault.
No, this one was not. I do kind of feel bad.
American bias.
No, and I do feel bad for him because it was like, oh, he didn't qualify last. Because he didn't qualify last every time last year, but he had a hard time qualifying. He didn't do that this year. He did okay. And then this happens to him in the race.
First race of the year. Yeah.
Unfortunate. Hopefully the kinks get worked out with steering wheels. I don't know if Albon's had any similar issues or not. But yeah, I don't know why they didn't bring it to testing unless they really didn't have it ready for testing.
No, I think they did bring it to testing.
Did they? I thought they had the...
No, they brought it to testing. The car for the whole year has had this new steering wheel.
Okay.
And maybe, we don't know. Maybe it's something Sargent is doing. Right? Because Albon isn't
hit the wrong switch.
Maybe he's hitting the wrong switch. We don't know. But whether it's him, whether it's the specific steering wheel, whether it's his car, maybe it's some software, hopefully they get it sorted out before the next race. Logan looked really good last year in Jeddah.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. So if they can sort that out and he has a good steering wheel, maybe they can have a better result this next weekend.
Alpine. We'll finish off with them.
P17, P18.
What a wonderful weekend they had.
We have no notes to their race beyond P17 and P18.
Nope. I don't know if there's much else to say on it. I mean, we kind of talked about they lost... Their technical director's gone. Their head of aero's gone. We'll see who's gone next week. See who gets hired in interim status. I don't know.
I saw a meme on somewhere today. Don't know where. That soon it will just be Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon fighting, literally fisticuffs in the pit for the tires. For the fresh set of tires, because they're going to be the only ones to be able to put the tires on the car, the wheels, So
there'll be nobody left.
There'll be no one left.
Oh, man. It's bad.
That's bad. Maybe they can get Alain Prost back.
Yeah. I feel bad for them, though. It's a tough situation, but someone's got to be at the back. Right now, it's them.
Someone always does have to be at the back.
I'm just glad it's not Haas right now, I guess. I don't know. Is that kosher? Again, we don't have any other notes other than P17, P18 because it's Alpine, and they just had a miserable weekend. I mean,
they did.
They didn't have any issues.
This is what happens when you take the yellow off the car. This is what happens.
Renault. Bring Renault back.
Bring Renault back. Yellow, black. That's what we need.
Yep.
Would the car be this slow if it was painted yellow and black?
It looked faster.
It did.
Yeah.
It looked like a bumblebee. And you know what? They're fast.
Are they?
Or a wasp. It looked like a wasp.
Maybe.
They're fast.
Now
it just looks like a Baskin Robbins to-go cup. Not fast.
I'm getting hungry now, though. I need a snack.
So that was the weekend. I don't think any of these results surprised us.
Not really.
Not really, especially after testing. We finally get to go to another circuit after spending 2 weeks in Bahrain. Not that there's anything wrong with Bahrain or the circuit. It's actually a pretty good circuit.
It is.
But something new for next
weekend.
Grosjean
was there. Did you see that picture?
He was in the paddock.
Yeah, he went and visited the corner he almost died in.
Yeah, that was pretty scary.
Fence, or whatever.
Gunther Steiner was there.
Yeah, he's now part of like German commentary or Sky Sports Germany
Yeah,
or something like
he's
that.
Sky Italy or Sky Germany or Sky Austria or who knows. There's so many skies.
But he's back. Overall, yeah, no real surprises. I think I was a little disappointed that it was just like it's 5 teams in the top 10.
Yeah.
There's no variety.
No.
Obviously nobody crashed, and that's fine. People are, like you said, I think their drivers are a little bit more cautious now in the opening laps than they used to be.
Yeah.
It's also race 1.
It's also race
So
1.
there's no real like animosity to anybody, or nobody's really like, oh, I need this position.
Right.
I need to.
In-season rivalries haven't started.
Right. Max has won the title already. It's fine. You can get to P2 later. But yeah, just kind of the weekend we kind of expected, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is a little disappointing, but also glad to have F1 back. Got Saudi Arabia next, and I think Suzuka's early this year.
Yeah,
I think it's like race 4
or 5.
Australia.
Yeah.
Australia's 3, and I think Suzuka's 4.
Right.
And China's
China.
5. China's
my
back.
God. Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited for that. Not gonna lie.
Best turn 1
It's so fun. It's so
good.
fun. It's satisfying just to have like an overhead cam with all the cars go through it.
It is so 1999. That whole circuit is so 1999.
But it's fun.
Man. It's good. Oh yeah, no, I think it's good.
Yeah.
A lot of good moments.
Max
That back
hitting
straight.
Vettel,
Oh yeah.
just super late dive bomb.
What are we doing here? Honestly.
Remember that? Oh man, good times.
Yeah, if circuits in the beginning part of the season, a lot of fun. A lot of good circuits that are normally in the second half of the year. Getting Australia third will be nice and good. That's usually, for us, the first race of the year, what we used to having the first race of the year. But yeah, we'll see how it all goes for everyone. Jeddah looks to be at least something different.
Yeah. I'm still kind of indifferent about it, but
after doing 3 days of testing and then 3 days of a race weekend, like
we need something else.
We need something else. I'm not a fan of Jeddah. I don't think they should race there. We've talked about that, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But excited for the races coming up. Excited for the season. Excited to see the development, see what happens in the next, 7 months.
Yeah. And remind me, this weekend is also a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you are listening to this, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday weekend. So Friday's qualifying, Saturday's the race.
Right.
Because I think Ramadan is on Sunday.
Aha. Okay.
So I believe that's why they moved everything forward last weekend for Bahrain and this weekend. So then they had the week gap between last race and this race.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I believe that's the case.
All right. That
Don't
makes
quote me,
sense.
but
no.
I think I heard that. Somebody
makes
was
sense.
thinking an F1 finally.
Ooh. Schedule team A1.
Nailed it. Anywho, I think that'll conclude our first, I guess that's not really the first episode, but the first race recap.
Race recap of the season.
Yeah, race recap of the season. Well, thank you for listening to The Pit Lane. This has been your host, Jordan Wynn and Alden Cawell, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you next weekend.
Thank you.